All right, so we're going to talk now in Recreation and Sport Management, Recreation and Sport Management 308, about single elimination tournament, and we're going to go through a practice round with this just to give you an opportunity to take a look at it. Again, I'm going to post some examples or some more practice rounds for you, so you can go through and work your way through it. I'll have some with answers, some without, so you can have that opportunity to work on it. But here's just want you to walk you through single elimination tournament, much like you might find out there if you get employment in recreational sport management. So here's what you need to know to make up or do this single elimination tournament. You have decided to offer a co-recreational softball tournament scheduled in the single elimination format. The tournament will be offered to adult participants aged 18 and above. All the participants are interested in a competitive and fun tournament experience. All the skills of the participants are similar, so we're going to put them all together in one kind of league, okay, or one tournament. For this tournament, you'll have 2 softball fields, Monday through Friday. So that's basically what, 5 days, right? You'll have those fields from 6 to 10 each of the nights. So five total days for that 1 week from 6 to 10, right? And the games will be scheduled for on the hour, and you only want teams to play once per day. Okay? So stipulations that we have to mind. All right, whoops, hit the wrong button. So now we're going to move on. We've got all our details that we need. Now we need to put those details together to help us run our tournament. Okay? And so what are units of participation? Again, units of participation are basically the way that we're going to divide our tournament up if we need to better meet the participants' needs based upon what kind of level they want to compete at. Okay, so we said this one in the description is competitive and co-recreational. So it's males and females playing together, and it is going to be a competitive one. So we really don't need to break it down anymore. We don't need to have any other units of participation. It's basically just competitive and co-recreational. Remember, the other options you could have are male and female. You could vary by competitive level, like we did in the round robin, advanced, intermediate, beginners, or that kind of skill level. And then you also can, how competitive do they want to be? Do they really want to compete and show off their skills and challenge their skills, or is it more about the socialization? They just want to be out there for fun. In this case, we're competitive and co-recreational. So, that's really one big tournament altogether. We don't have to break it down into smaller tournaments. Okay. So our next question to ask ourselves is, what is the maximum number of games or slots before subtracting wasted games? So we have to figure out what the maximum number of games are going to be. And how do we figure out how to do that? It's the same as what we did in round robin. The number of weeks times the number of days per week times the number of hours per day times the number of fields that we have. Okay. For this practice, we have 1 week, or for this practice activity, we have 1 week, 5 days for the week, Monday through Friday. We have 4 hours per day, 6 to 10. And we have 2 fields. So we multiply all those together. 1 times 5 is 5, times 4 is 20, times 2, and we get 40 games are available. So we basically have 40 slots that we can fit games into before we take away wasted games. Remember, in single elimination, we have to keep in mind wasted games, because there's times when those fields are going to be empty, those slots that we aren't going to be able to use. Okay, so you have to figure out how many wasted games you're going to have to help us figure out how many games we can play. Okay, and wasted games are going to be based upon how many teams that you have. Okay, so let's take a look at wasted games. So how many wasted games are we going to have for our tournament? So remember, we basically have, based upon the number of hours per day and the number of fields, we have 8 games per day. Okay, 8 games that we can offer per day. All right, so that's important for us to know as we try to figure out wasted games. Okay, so we have 8 games per day, or 8 slots for games per day. Okay, so how many wasted slots or games are we going to have? Well, we go back, and I showed you this last time. So basically, remember, 8 games per day. So when we do our finals, work our way backwards. So we do our finals. We're going to only have 1 game that day, and we're basically going to have the 7 fields sitting empty when we play that 1 game. Okay, so that day we're going to have 1 game going on, 7 wasted. Semifinals. This second round here. Okay, we have 4 teams playing, but there's only 2 games going on, but we still have 6 other slots available. So we have 2 games, 6 wasted games. We go to this next round, the quarterfinals round, and we have 8 teams playing, 4 games there, but we still have 8 fields, right? So we have 4 wasted fields that are happening. When we get up to this next round, where we have 16 games, 8 games going on, there's the magic number. We have 8 games going on. We have 8 slots for games, so we won't have any wasted games at that point. Okay, so if we add up all these wasted games, 4, 6, and 7, we get 17 wasted games. Okay, hope you can see that. All right, so think about how many games are going on that day. Just 1 on the finals day. 7 wasted games because we have 8 slots based upon the number of the hours and the number of fields. For the semifinals, we have 6 wasted games because we have 4 teams playing, but there's only 2 games. Okay, and I'll show you what this looks like as we move on. Okay, so hopefully you get that. Now we have 17 wasted games. So now this will help us figure out our next step is what's the maximum number of teams that we can have in our tournament. We want to try to figure out how many teams we can have in our tournament. Remember the equation. What's the equation? N minus 1, right? So N minus 1 gives us, N is the number of teams in our tournament, minus 1 equals the total number of games. So single elimination, we have 1 less game than our teams, right? But we know total games, right? We just figured out we have 40 total potential. That's the maximum we can have. But we're subtracting 17 from that. So we know 40 minus 17 gives us how many total games we're going to have available to play. Okay? So we have our total maximum number of games is 40. Wasted games, which we just figured out, was 17. 40 minus 17 gives us 23. Now we throw it back into the equation. N minus 1 equals total number of games. We know we have the 1 and we have the total number of games. Now we can figure out the N. In simple math, what number minus 1 equals 23? Well, N equals 24. So we can have a maximum of 24 teams in our tournament. Okay? That's great. Now we know how many teams maximum we can have. So we can cut registration off at 24 and we can run our tournament as planned and in the time that we have available with the number of fields that we have available. Okay. So how many games does it take to finish your single elimination tournament? We just figured that out, right? We figured it out. Same equation. Same equation from the first part, right? N minus 1 equals the total number of games. We have 24 teams. 1 minus 1, maximum number of teams we can have, or maximum number of games is 23. Okay? So now we go to the next step. Okay? And remember, we also base this out on the total number of games minus the wasted games, and that give us the total that we would have. But remember, when you do single elimination, we have to remember the power of 2, right? Power of 2 is the key element when we look at single elimination tournament. So we have 24 teams, right? We have to go out to the 5th power to have equal or more kind of slots available. Okay. So in this case, remember, to the 5th power, that's 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 times 2 is 8. 8 times 2 is 16. That doesn't cover 24, so we have to go out to that. 16 times 2 is 32. So we need a 32 team bracket to cover those 24 teams. Now, remember, we don't have enough teams to cover that 32 team bracket, so we have to give buys. We have to assign buys. So basically, we know that the first 8 teams are going to have byes, because we can subtract 32 minus 24. That's going to give us 8. So the first 8 teams in our tournament, the top 8 seeded teams, are going to have byes. Okay? Remember, that's where the power of 2 comes in. So our bracket's going to look something like this. All right, so we have, 32 teams listed here. Now, the one thing that I didn't do is like 1 versus 32. There is no 32 teams, so 1 is going to have a bye. Anything below 8 or below is going to have a bye. So this is 8 right here. 8 versus 25. There's no 25 team. 8 will have a bye. 4 is going to have a bye. 5 is going to have a bye. 2 is going to have a bye. 7 is going to have a bye. 3 is going to have a bye. 6 is going to have a bye. So we got our excuse me, our 8 teams that have byes. Okay, but this is what our bracket will look like, and we can write in the names of the teams in here. All right, so the teams will know who they're playing and kind of how they can progress through it. A lot of times you'll see in between the 2 teams they'll have the field and the time and date that the teams are going to be playing. The other thing you can do, and you can create a schedule using that information in that bracket, and you can say, all right, on Monday at 6 o'clock, game 1 is going to be team 16 versus team 17. Well, you go back here, remember, team 1 versus 32 is a bye, but then we have 16 versus 17, so that'll be our game 1. That'll be a Monday at 6 o'clock, and you can just work your way down through until you get all your teams covered. So game 2, 9 versus 24, and ideally you're going to have names for them. Team 3, or game 3 is 13 versus 20, and 12 versus 21. I just put the top part of the bracket on field 1, the bottom part of the bracket on field 2. Okay, and again, there's those 8 games. We talked about wasted games. We don't have any wasted games on that first day. We don't have any wasted games on the second day. We don't get into wasted games until we hit the quarterfinals right here. And you can see we have 4 wasted games like we had talked about. Here we got 6 wasted games because we only have these 2 games being played. And then on the last day is the championship, and we have 7 wasted days. Okay, so you can see how those wasted days are play a part in the scheduling, because they're going to come back and you're going to see them arise. This is game 9. Is that one team, that first seeded team, now plays their first game against the 16-17 winner. And game 2, or game 13 down here, 2 plays 15-18. So you can see that, and ideally what should happen, we talked about this in single elimination, 1 should meet up with 2 at the end. If seeding's perfect, that's what's going to happen. So you ideally expect, in here, the 1 team will face the number 16 team. In this one, you expect 8 to face 9. Now, we know it doesn't always work, and that's the excitement of single elimination, but that's what we're looking for. Okay, so we took a tournament from idea, and this is what we want to have, and took it through to determine how much fields we have, and the slots or the availability of slots, wasted games, and put it into the total number of teams that we can have, figured out the power of 2, created our bracket, and then created our schedule based upon that. And so that's single elimination. Like I said, I'll have some examples out there for you to practice on. Again, this will be something that you'll see on the test on Friday through the weekend. So make sure you practice these and take advantage of those opportunities to work on them. Again, if you have any questions, virtual office hours are a great time to ask, but let me know and I'll be happy to work with you. All right. Good.